Hello, and welcome back to Knowledge, our college football and NFL show. We've been going through the win totals, gone through the Big 12, ACC, and now we're on to what has been for a decade now the most dominant conference in college football, but one that's completely changed with the retirement of Nick Saban this past year. So this conference, now that scary shadow of Alabama is gone, is going to look a whole lot different this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I say we just kick things right off and go right into it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go through the win totals and starting just with Alabama, Crimson Tide. Kalen DeBoer taking over from Washington after making the national title last year. Now, Alabama's win total this year is sitting right at 9.5. And I think this is going to be, this is probably one of my most uncertain picks and one of the bigger unknowns, I think, in all of college football this year is what is Alabama going to look like? I've got them just under that win total, right at about 9 wins, but I could really see them surprising people too. Let's just start with you, Charlie. What do you think of Bama this season?
So last year I slept on my bed. I did take the under if you listen to our C win totals last year. This year I will be taking the over. And I think people overhype it a bit how much to lose. They lose a couple pieces. They lose like Caleb Downs, who lost Martin Black tight ends in Texas, but they don't lose a lot, and they're much more talented than most of our teams. I think what will be interesting to see is Kalen DeBoer. He went from like really big passing air raid, and then he's gonna have to switch because Bama's not really normally as much of an air raid team. Like especially last year, they're more of a running focused team. So I want to see how that works.
Well, let's kind of talk about, do we think that the quarterback Milroe can adapt to that passing, that level of high-level passing that was expected of Michael Penix last year?
I think it
the
worked
closest
better.
thing
If
we
they're
saw
running
to
first.
those deep bombs with Milroe was that Texas game, and we know how that ended. And I think he's going to be good because I agree with Chuck what he was saying, where people are kind of beginning to
they're still
deep
very
on what
talented.
Bama's lost, and Bama's still one of those top national teams. Like they recruit at a big level. They've got a lot of talent. They're still going to be great. It's Bama, you know? And so I kind of agree with that. I would still take the under here just because I think there's a couple tough games here. But Jalen Milroe is still a better quarterback than a lot of teams have. So theirs can definitely contend. I wouldn't think it'd be crazy if they hit an over here.
And that's a good.
Did you take an over?
I am taking the over, yeah.
And that's a good word. I think that would be what Bama probably fans and expect most this season is just contend for a playoff spot, and hopefully, I would say at 10-2 Bama is in the college football playoff, right?
Yeah.
And so that would probably be their goal this season. Even if they drop that Georgia and like LSU games or something like that, you can still get to it.
I'm really interested to see that Wisconsin game week 3.
Yeah,
because that's gonna be the first real game for Bama,
That place will be rocking.
and that's gonna be the new Wisconsin that everyone thought would have
Oh,
kind of been
boy.
transformed last year, but maybe this is their first chance this year.
That would
to
be a
show what they
statement for
got.
them.
So yeah. There's
There's
that. They also have UCF, who they struggled with last year, but I think that
USF.
was a one-time thing.
Yeah, and I mean they do have a fairly tough schedule. I mean, going especially the key game at LSU, I think, is at LSU,
At
Georgia.
Tennessee.
I think at Tennessee, all will be very tough.
I wouldn't even sleep on. I had Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I mean Missouri. At least
Really, a lot of their toughest games are away, and then Georgia's at home. But that's also the problem of their Georgia. So does that even count?
Yeah.
So I don't see them getting getting away with only 2 losses, but I've seen more surprising things in my life. So now let's move on to perhaps one of the, I'd say like the most hyped teams this year.
Most
One
overhyped.
Overhyped, you could say, along with Oregon.
Actually, except Missouri. Missouri is the most.
The Ole Miss Rebels, Lane Kiffin, kind of a big favorite among the college football world for his unique personality, and coming off a really strong bowl win last year over Penn State. So they're carrying a ton of momentum this year. He's got the Rebels better than really they've ever been and more relevant. Now their over-under total is right at 9.5. Do we think they live up to the hype, James?
I think they do, because the difference here is that Ole Miss has actually shown some potential. They looked really good in that bowl game last year against Penn State, whereas teams like Penn State, obviously they failed it, in like Oregon, kind of lost every big game. Where Ole Miss, I feel like they showed a little more shine, and I also am a lot higher on Jackson Dart than some of these other quarterbacks. I think he's great. I think he could be contending for Heisman. They lose Krishan Judkins, that kind of sucks. But I think the schedule's reasonable. I mean, they play Georgia and Florida, Oklahoma, LSU. But if you look at it at 9.5, I think they can go 10-2 with losses to, Georgia maybe at. I mean, they beat LSU last year, but maybe at LSU.
Yeah, I've got the over on them too. Look, even so in past years, I would say Ole Miss has kind of been a comparison with Penn State, where they beat all the teams they're supposed to beat, and they lose to all their teams they're supposed to lose to. And if you kind of take that similar pattern this year, they probably win every game except for LSU and Georgia, right? So even then, that's got them sitting right at 10-2. And I'd say they're perfectly capable of doing that, and maybe even better. And having that playoff appearance, probably, I would say getting maybe that 8 seed somewhere around there. And I think even then, an Ole Miss team could kind of be one of those dark horse playoff teams,
I'm not as high as those guys on Ole Miss. I'm actually taking under. I think probably 9-3. If you just look at it, I think they're not quite with the elites, Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. You can maybe throw. I don't think they're quite as good as LSU. And I think the key game decides it. I think they drop to LSU, which keeps them back from like the top 4 teams. I think that is a very big game. That's what pulls them back 9-3. I just don't think they're quite.
Being in Death Valley this year, I think changes.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. I
don't think they have quite as much
I
time
would
with
expect them to
teams.
lose that. Yeah. Well, we're talking about LSU. Let's just go around to them. They're got over under right at 9, and I think this is an easy over actually. I mean, even in the big disappointment last year, they still went 9-3 in the regular season, which was a big letdown. But Brian Kelly is a very qualified coach. He's proven he knows how to coach a football team, and I think even they could surprise people and really contend for an SEC title appearance. Actually, their schedule is not horrible. I mean, you dodge Georgia there in the regular season. You got Bama, but nothing else that I don't think is really tough besides that. In fact, I would expect LSU to be favored in the majority of these games, except for maybe A&M and Bama. What about you, Charlie? What do you think?
This is kind of one of my hot takes, but I have LSU making the title game. I think key game they win against Bama. I think Nussmeier, he'll be all right. He's gonna be pretty good at passing. They're actually a slight favorite against Bama, favored by 2.5. And if you look at Brian Kelly, everywhere he's won at the highest level, like at every place he's went to. Like Notre Dame, they're not gonna win titles if he took them in the playoffs. So LSU,
he's a proven winner. Yeah.
He's won at the highest level at each place he could. So
no, say what you will about him, he knows.
I think he will win a title at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the coach.
This is an over.
Is this at 9 or 9.5?
It's at 9.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to go with a push here. I think Gary Nussmeier is gonna be good, but not great this year. He's obviously talented, but we haven't seen a lot of him to know yet. He didn't look amazing in that bowl game. It's really, you look at what they did last year with the Heisman level quarterback, trying to keep that defense, carry them to wins, and now he's gone. So think of what they'll look without that, And the schedule's reasonable, like y'all said, but USC, Ole Miss, A&M, Bama, even at Florida, Oklahoma, I don't know. I think I could see them going exactly 9-3 here.
And I forgot about that Ole Miss game too. That'll be a big challenge, but they have that at home, like we said earlier when talking about them. And USC, USC has been trying to dodge that game for a while now. They're scared. So,
first to get stop ones.
Yeah, it's all about that defense, really, right? I mean,
I think the defense will be
it's
a
real stonewall.
It's the similar conversation as USC, and actually on the opposite side of Iowa, it's like if they can get that defense just like an average level, like how good could they be, right? So yeah, we'll see what happens. Now let's move on to one that's really, I feel like, definitely slept on. One of the new additions to the SEC this year, the Oklahoma Sooners. Last year, very solid, 10-3 with that big victory over Texas in the Red River rivalry. They're going to play Texas that year again. They got a fairly tough schedule, I would say, but their over/under is only 7.5, which is kind of shockingly low to me. Yeah, very disrespectful. So I have the over here, definitely. Even if it's at only 8 wins, I think they can get 8 wins out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree here. Everyone's kind of been saying the same thing, and it's mainly here on the schedule. People say Oklahoma's got the hardest schedule in the SEC, which is probably true, but that's why this total is so low. And people are leading to forget that they had a really good season last year. I mean, like you said, they beat Texas in the Red River Shootout, and they showed a lot of talent. Obviously, losing Dylan Gabriel hurts, but at least they went out and got someone in Jackson Arnold. You know, I think he'll be good enough where, looking at this, they can hit 8 wins for sure.
And wouldn't that be a great just hot take or something to happen if Oklahoma adjusted to the SEC better than Texas did? That would be pretty crazy.
I have to agree with these people, unfortunately. It isn't over. People are sleeping on Oklahoma too much. 7.5 is too low. Like, they won 10 games last year, and I mean, they don't lose that much. I personally think Jackson Arnold used Dylan Gabriel, but Jackson Arnold is
a solid replacement.
It's a much higher ceiling of them. I mean, it's only his second year there, and he looked pretty good in very limited time last year.
And let's make no mistake, their schedule is pretty challenging. You have 2 pretty decent non-con teams in Houston and Tulane, and then you go in Tennessee, Auburn, Texas, Mississippi, Missouri, Alabama, LSU. Those are tough games, but I think they can get enough just to get to 8 wins probably. And yeah, I got the over here. All right, now let's move on to one of the biggest questions in the SEC and college football this offseason, the Texas A&M Aggies. Mike Elko coming over from Duke to take over this program after the departure of Jimbo Fisher. And this team's got a lot of, I would say, kind of like mysterious hype behind them. I think people are really excited, but still don't really know what this is going to look like. I mean, A&M obviously has high expectations, their own fan base, and with an over-under of 8.5, people are expecting them to be pretty good. But James, you seem like you're pretty well versed in explaining this. So what's your take on A&M this season?
I mean, you look at A&M, and every single year, there's expectations. It's A&M and Miami is a very similar team here, where they basically have a ton of hype every year with their recruiting classes and whatnot to be a great team. And for the past, I don't know, it's like past 5 years at least, they've let down every time. And that is why I can't really blame anyone for not buying into the hype on teams like A&M Miami this year, because they've yet to prove and they've yet to live up to any of those standards. But for me, at least, the difference this year is that Jimbo's gone. We have Elko now. And so that really changes things. And a big reason that everyone obviously is saying, oh, I have A&M, the dark horse, you know, this is because of their schedule. There's no way around it. They have one of the easier schedules in the SEC here. I mean, you look at it, and there's maybe 4 games they can lose.
Especially since Notre Dame's a non-conference one. I mean, yeah.
Pretty much every hard game they have is at home. Notre Dame, Texas, LSU, Missouri. Their only hard away game, maybe I would say, is Florida. You know, I don't think that Auburn game will be a problem. But I will say, you know, LSU, even those better teams that they're going to play, that most people might have losing it. LSU hasn't won in Kyle since 2016. Yeah. So, don't even overlook those games. I mean, a lot of people have them beating Notre Dame week 1. So they've got a lot of talent returning. They obviously, the big thing last year is that they had so many one-score losses to teams like Bama and Ole Miss with a backup quarterback. I mean, they started 4 different quarterbacks throughout the whole year. And this year, they're finally going to have Connor Weigman back and healthy, where he should be a top-tier quarterback for them, and that could really elevate it.
Yeah, I mean, I would pick them going the under. I'd pick right about 8-4, but I could see 9-3 too. For me, it's they haven't earned my trust yet, so I'm not going to place in them. So I'm just going to be a little more cautious with them this season. But that big test, I mean, we could talk about is Notre Dame, that first game of the season. Can you imagine if they win that game, what a just statement that'll be?
Notre Dame does not win big games.
That would just be an enormous. I mean, that's immediate, just huge rankings boost. It's just saying okay, we're here. This is who we are.
You look at what they've done in the offseason, it seems like Elko's already building a much better culture than Jimbo already had. You know, they're not trying to be flashy or anything. They just want to actually win games this year.
I am also taking under. The way I see it, they have a lot of toss-up games. I mean, if you look at the spreads, these are all within 3 points. Notre Dame, Texas, Auburn, Florida, Missouri, LSU. And I don't quite trust them to win the one-score games yet. And also a question for Notre Dame game, I don't quite know if Connor Weigman's going to be healthy yet.
He's going to be healthy.
I'm not 100% sure about it.
He's going to be healthier than Riley Leonard, though. I mean,
I don't
Connor
know,
Weigman was injured.
Both broke his
leg way earlier in the
I
year.
just don't quite trust
he's
him
been healthy
to win the one-score
for a
games.
lot more of the offseason than Riley Leonard has. So they're saying he should be plenty healthy by the week 1.
They're going to be really interesting, and like I said, a lot of people's dark horse. So could really turn out to be a surprise contender, I think. Now let's move on to another team that people kind of are like quietly positive on too, the Auburn Tigers. Hugh Freeze, after a really, in a lot of ways, a disappointing end last year. I mean, that Bama game was
Bro,
just,
4 from 31. That's crazy.
whew, I'm still stunned. Like just like looking back at that, it's like, oh, how
So
was
they're
it
so close to a good year.
bad?
They're so close to a good year.
I can't imagine. I'm not an Auburn fan, but if I was, I'd be
If
so
I was an Auburn
angry.
fan, I would walk out after that game.
Yeah, definitely. I'd quit the game. No. All right, but yeah, over under of 7.5 here. I got the under on Auburn. I just don't see them really making these huge amounts of strides that we saw. I don't see them getting up to 8 wins. I think they can make 6 or 7 again, kind of similar to how they were last year. But no, I'm not expecting much more from them than that. Charlie, what are you thinking on Auburn?
Surprisingly, I will be taking the over. And you look at it, they could have been 6, 8, and 4 easily last year. If they don't lose New Mexico State and Bama, 2 games ago. But the big question mark everyone's going to talk about is Peyton Thorne. But the way I see it, I actually don't think he's going to be the QB the whole year. I think they'll go with someone else, maybe Walker White, freshman. And with the new wide receivers they got, I think they barely slip into 8 and 4.
Yeah.
I think they replace Peyton
I
Thorne.
disagree completely with anyone that is buying into the Auburn hype this year.
I'm not buying into the hype. I'm just taking the slide over.
At 8 wins for them after what they did last year, you look at it, and you lose get blown out by teams like New Mexico State. If that happens, who says they can't lose to the lower tier
California.
SEC teams like Kentucky? They struggled with Cal last year, so who says they can't lose to them this year? And obviously Peyton Thorne, I just straight up think Peyton Thorne's a bad quarterback.
They're gonna lean on the run game. They'll lean on the run game.
Still,
Or they're
every
probably
time he'll
pulling
turn
up
it
there.
over anytime he's so. I do agree with what you said. Where if they put Walker White in, that could help, but he's still a question mark. He's a freshman. Same with those wide receivers. How much are they going to contribute this year? So I'm taking under here. I don't think they're.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think they should make that big of a step this year. Especially, they do have a fairly difficult, everyone in the SEC has a fairly difficult schedule, at least this year, and I don't think they're getting out of there with only 4 losses or less. But let's move on to the Arkansas Razorbacks. These are an interesting one this year. Over under a total of 4.5, so not many people with much faith, considering they went 4 wins last season too. Now, I got the slight over here. I could see it either way, but I think Arkansas could end up right around 5 and 7, maybe even 6 and 6, get to that bowl. But I'm not sure if that'll be enough to save Sam Pittman's job, really. What do you think about this, Charlie?
I may have written down an under, but I'm taking the over on my Hog Brothers.
Yeah,
I think Sam Pittman gets off top seed, and then he goes 6 and 6. Might be kind of nerd thing, but I watched those spring games, and Taylor Green looked very good at QB. So that's an improvement over KJ. And then I think they barely slipped 6 and 6.
Yeah. What do you?
I think Arkansas is a tough one to decide here, but honestly, looking at the schedule and what they went through last year, I agree with Chuck. Taylor Green could make things better. Obviously, KJ last year, good rusher, whatnot, but he kind of had some mistakes, and he was never really as good as people thought he could have been. And they went out and got Bobby P, which is one of the millions.
That's not
Bobby's good.
Obviously, he didn't work out at A&M offense coordinator last year, so I don't really know.
Yeah, was that him or was it Jimbo,
It's like, I don't think he's going to work out for them there either. So I'd probably take a slight under here. Probably repeat of 4
They don't believe in the Hogs.
I don't believe in the Hogs. Well, I do, but...
Can they pull the upset week 2, Oklahoma State?
Yeah, that's the thing. You got tough Oklahoma State. I don't know.
all
But
that's
I
just
think
gonna
they can get
be
enough just to get to 5 would be right on my pick.
Yeah.
I don't have too much.
They
faith
return
in
to bowl game. They're coming
Yeah.
back.
Hey, we'll see. All right, now let's finish out. Return,
They
yeah.
didn't make a
Or no. Well, they made a couple
Back to back bowl games.
No, they made it twice by 2, so that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Last and least.
All right, let's finish it out with Mississippi State Bulldogs. Jeff Levy's first year after kind of trying to do a program shift last year. Didn't really work out for them. Went 5 and 7. And my thoughts on this is I got the under here. Look, in the SEC, as is other conferences, someone has to suck. And I think it's going to end up being these guys. I think just with enough of the schedule being tough, you got Georgia A&M, Tennessee, Mizzou, Mississippi, Texas. it's tough, and I don't think they're gonna get to 5 wins with it. What do you do?
Mississippi State is questionable for me. Obviously, all the coaching change and whatnot, and losing Will Rogers hurts. They lose a lot of starters.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take a slight over here. You know, I think they start out 3-0 with Eastern Kentucky, Arizona State, Toledo. After that, it's gonna be a really rough stretch. But then I think they can pick up, you know, Arkansas, Massachusetts. That gets them to 5 wins already.
Bro, that's sleeping on UMass.
I think it's possible.
Dude, they
They
upset
sit
by
back.
eight.
I
They
think
sleep
honestly,
on you, man.
I think they just repeat as 5 and 7. They're not gonna be a good team, but I think they can hit the
I have an under.
They need to just end their program if they lose to UMass.
Yeah, I have an under. I think they're gonna be the sponge that soaks up like every team can be them. They'll soak up all the L's, and I kind of think they're missing kind of an identity as a team. They went from Mike Leach, offense air raid. Then went to Zach Arnett for 1 year defense. Got fired. Now they're back to Jeff Levy. I don't think it's gonna work out too good.
I don't think it'll be enough.
I don't think they know-
a ton.
Also, Jeff Levy, offensive coach, they don't have a QB really. They're not gonna have much of an offensive game in general.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode. Now we'll see you soon for the second half of the SC predictions, where we got some really interesting teams going on, and it's gonna be a good time.